Hey, what's up guys? Cooking with Caden here, and today we're going to be making a video on beef Osso Bucco. So, I know I'm a little bit late on this video. I just want to apologize. Life essentially just got in the way, so let's get right into this video. Alright, so to make beef Osso Bucco, we're going to need beef veal shanks. So if you can see, these are quite expensive for a shank at the very least. These are about $15 for two, $7.29 a pound. And this is my face after I saw that. Okay, so as you can see, these are expensive. So I'm going to measure out my ingredients by weight. So I'm going to take my celery and I'm going to get approximately 4 ounces. You don't have to be exact on this. Basically, you want 1/3 celery, 1/3 carrot, and 2/3 onions.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man? Bro, I'm out, man. That nigga's tripping.
So now we're going to get about the same amount of weight in our carrots, which approximates to about 4 ounces. So after that, we're going to cut these into small 1/2-inch dices. So these should be uniform, but I had some leftover carrots, so I just used these to dice them up. That's why they're already in this shape. So you just want to get these into little small cubes. So we're going to end up making essentially mirepoix with this is what it would be called. So you want to grab your celery now. And then I'm going to flatten out these celeries by pressing them down with my hand. And then take my knife and cut it down lengthwise and then go across to make little small dice. These are about 1/2 inch, as you can see here. Might be a little bigger. It depends on how big 1/2 inch is to you. I know a lot of guys tend to overestimate how big an inch is. So my inch might be a little bit bigger than yours. Okay, so we're going to clean off our cutting board here and set our carrots and celery to the side, and we're going to dice an onion. So I know I only show a little bit of this, only half of this onion, but you are about going to need the entire onion on this. You want 6 ounces of this, which I know if you're doing the math in your head, you're like, Caden, that's not that 2/3 as you promised. I'm like, it's not exact. You just want to get near it. So get your 1/2-inch dice of onion and set it on a plate to the side to make this easier for you. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my whole head of garlic and cut it exactly in half. So you don't need to peel the paper on this, but I am going to throw away a little bit of the excess paper so it's not all over the place. The reason you don't need to is because it'll stay in the sauce and you're not going to be eating it. You're just going to be straining the sauce at the end. So if you see the silver skin on the side of the Osso Bucco, I'm teaching you this here. So a lot of people might think you need to take this off, but I did one of these just to do a compare and contrast. You don't need to cut this off whatsoever, so this is just an entire waste of time. So why would you do anything that wastes your time? You guys are busy people, I imagine. Or maybe you're not. You just don't want to do this knife work. So doing this actually retains the shape of your veal shanks much better, and they don't crumble as much up. If you want to right now, you can tie these up with butcher's twine, and this will help the shape of your pork shanks or your veal shanks, whichever you want to use. I'm using beef today. You can also use pork. This recipe works both ways, but I'm using beef, so you could tie these up with some butcher twine, but I decided not to, and these retain their shape just fine. So once you season both sides with salt and pepper, you want to go to your pot and you want to grab your olive oil. So we're going to be measuring out 4 tablespoons or 2 fluid ounces of olive oil. You don't need to measure this out. You just want enough to let your veal shanks brown to a nice golden brown color. So I'm going to let you hear the audio on this just so you can kind of understand what this should be sounding like. So we're going to put all 3 of these in here. Or if you're doing 4 as this recipe is built for, I'm actually doing double this, but I'm only showing you half so you guys can follow along. So you can put all 4 in here. You want the biggest pots possible. So I want to do all 4 at once just because overcrowding is a thing and it'll make too much water buildup and you won't be able to brown them as quickly. As you can see, I'm only using 2 right here to make as much room for the veal shanks. so they can brown as quickly as possible, and you're not going to overcook these, but you might be searing them for a little bit too long. So I'm showing you that we have a nice high heat here, and I'm showing you my shoes. I am wearing shoes this video, so dude, you're not going to see my feet. So I'm just going to speed this up for you guys till you can see these nice colors on this beef here. So you can see on the left, I'm flipping a little bit too early, but that's alright. The one on the right is actually brown about how you want to. So if you see that color on yours, you know it's about time. I would give these maybe a little bit longer, so I'll show you when that happens. But really quick, I just remembered something. So if you can see exactly where those bones are, there's a little substance inside of that. And this is called bone marrow. So bone marrow actually tastes really good. So at the end of this cook, if you're instructing your guest, you can tell them, you can actually either grab a spoon or you can just pick it up with your hand and you can suck the bone marrow out of it. This tastes really good with bread, it tastes good on its own, and it's really flavorful overall. So I'm picking this up to show you. That is the exact color you want. You don't want to go any further than that. That is beautiful. So I'm making sure that I get all of my veal shanks in there. So once you pull those out, you want to set them to the side in a pan, and you want to add your onion first. So we're just going to saute these for a little bit until we add our carrots. So there's actually an order to which we're going to do this. You can go carrot first and then onion, but you never want to do celery first. So either go onion then carrot or carrot then onion. But I'm doing onion then carrot today. So I'm going to add a little bit more oil in here. As you don't really need to measure at this point. You just want enough to where it's not overly oiled, but you're still sauteing these in a good heat to where they're not burning. So I'm showing you this brown stuff on the bottom of the pan is called fond. So you're building that anytime you're roasting something or sauteing something. It's on the bottom of your pan. This stuff tastes incredible once you let its flavors develop and meld. So I have some tomato paste I'm going to be adding here, and we're going to be adding exactly 2 ounces. So once again, you don't need to be super precise on this, but since you're already weighing other things out, you might as well just weigh it out to exactly what I say. I'm going to be putting the exact recipe that I followed in the description word for word. So this recipe actually follows you step by step and tells you what to do. So you shouldn't mess this up. So we're just going to be stirring around this tomato paste here. So make sure you just get the tomato paste beforehand when you're doing your mise en place, which means things in place in French. So I'm going to be adding a little bit of brown beef stock here just to thin it up a little bit. I'm trying to scrape off the fond of the bottom without letting it burn. I thought it was getting ready to burn, and I'm sorry for the fog here. I'm trying to show you what the fond looks like, but that is what you want to scrape down if you see those little brown bits. You just want to scrape them a little bit. Right now, you still are developing the flavors until you get to this point. So this is the point in which I showed you that this is until you want to cook it down. This is how far you want to cook it down until once you get to this stage, you know your tomato paste and your celery and your onion and your carrots are good. So now we're going to be adding our garlic. And then after our garlic, we're going to be adding a couple sprigs of fresh thyme. It's not precise on how much you need, but you just do want to add some fresh thyme here. I love fresh thyme in any recipe. It just really brings out the flavor of all your dishes. It has a nice flavor of its own, and it makes everything just taste fresh and wonderful. Now we're going to be adding some bay leaves. My bay leaves are a little bit torn up, so ideally you would want a whole bay leaf to add to this, but I don't have any. So we're going to be adding 16 fluid ounces of red wine. You want a decent red wine, just one that tastes good. You don't ever want to cook with a wine that tastes bad, but you don't want to use a super expensive wine to cook. So don't ever buy a cooking wine, just buy a regular wine, and if it tastes alright, you can use it. So I'm going to be scraping down this fond here. I'm just speeding it up. So you want to scrape down every single piece of this fond before you add it. So just grab a little bit of red wine up and then scrape it down with your wooden spatula or whatever spatula you're using. So I'm just letting this reduce slightly as I grab my other ingredients here. So we're going to be making a little cover out of parchment paper here. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can just grab your lid and cut all the way around it until you make a circle. Or you can get a rough shape with your rectangle and then fold it in to make little diagonal triangles, as I'm going to show you here. So you really, and then you can just cut around here. But you really want to do a couple extra folds on this until it's about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch in length, and then cut it from there, and that'll give you the best results. So we're going to be adding our veal shanks in here now. While you were reducing that red wine, you want to have some beef stock on site, or you can actually use half stock and half espagnole. If you don't know what espagnole is, you can either look it up, or you don't really have to worry about it. So you're going to want 24 fluid ounces. So I actually added about 30, but reduced that down until 24. So this is as strong as possible. So as you can see, I used both the pot and I had some leftover in there. So what I did here is I used my leftover juices that were resting on the pan. So I'm going to only use half here because remember, I'm doing double this recipe because I was cooking for a lot of people. This was Valentine's Day when I did this. So I filmed this quite a while ago. So once you add that, you're just going to want to put your parchment paper on, and then you're going to want to use the lid to your pot to completely cover it. So now we're going to be adding this to an oven that was preheated to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So you want to place this into the oven for 2.5 to 3 hours. So I pulled it out about 2.5 hours and checked it, as you can see here. So what you want to do is you want to grab a fork or some other type of pokey device and just stab it. And if it goes in clean with little to no resistance whatsoever, you know you're done. So my hand's actually going to be in the way while I show you this, which I apologize for, but I just stabbed these with the fork, and I thought I needed to cook these for about 20 minutes longer, so I did, and then I pulled them out. So, as you could see earlier, I was mentioning that this was hot. Cold steel and hot steel look exactly the same, so you do want to be careful when you do this. So I'm just going to put these in the oven for about 20 more minutes, and then we are done. So once these come out of the oven, you can actually strain the liquid through like a chinois or anything else you want to use. So that brings us to the end of this video. As you can see, I've served this with a bed of risotto. You don't have to. So I want to thank you guys for all the love you've been getting me. I appreciate every comment and like you've been showing me on this video. So if you made it this far, I just ask that you comment something that you want to see in the future, and I would like to say thank you. Goodbye.